Hey there, AfterBuzzers. You're watching the AfterBuzz TV after show for Law & Order Special Victims Unit, Season 18, Episode 4, Heightened Emotions. Join us as we break down the episode and give our thoughts and predictions. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, hey guys. Jesse and I are in here, jamming out, getting ready to talk this latest episode of Law & Order SVU with you guys. I am sure there are tons of you in the chat right now. We're having some connectivity issues, so if you are here chatting with us, we may not be able to see everything the whole time, but we are super excited to have you. Oh wait, hey guys, hey Amanda, hey, oh Jesse, hey Jasmine, hey Anne-Marie. Okay, all right, we're gonna dive on into it. As you guys know, I am Lauren Salaun, and you can find me everywhere online at Lauren Salaun, and I'm joined by Mr. Jesse
DJ
Janedy.
Jesse J. You guys can hit me up everywhere. I'm actually in the chat with y'all right now, because we got to chat about this episode.
Oh yeah, oh we're still going, we're still going. All right, all right. So it's just the two of us tonight, but it's okay. We're going to have a lot of fun with you guys because there are a ton of you in the chat. And before we dive into everything, want to make sure you guys know, as usual, SVU deals with a lot of sensitive subject matter, and we will be talking about all of that. And we may make jokes about all of that because it's a TV show and because that's sometimes what you do with sensitive subjects, you know, and you make tasteless jokes that could be really funny though still. So anyway, there's your warning for it. And Jesse has a hotline for us in case anyone has anything going on. We've got a hotline for y'all.
Yes, it is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network hotline. You guys can give them a call at 1-800-656-HOPE. Again, that's 1-800-656-HOPE.
Awesome. And if you're listening live to us in YouTube right now, be sure you are subscribed so you don't miss any of our weekly after shows. And comment if you're in the chat, comment on iTunes, subscribe, comment away, leave us a review, all that jazz. All right, let's dive into things. So this episode, we've got Jenna Miller, who is a champion, like top in the world pole vaulter. Yes. So she is training. She didn't make it into the Rio Olympics, which are the Olympics we just had, because of some technicality. And she's like, training like, I almost said training like a crazy person. Oh, whoops, there's that mention of the jokes thing. She's training like crazy, and we basically come into this situation where it turns out that she is an escort. So she's got a little secret life here going on to blow off some steam.
Kind of funny too, because last week where we talked about beards and we talked about how there are women celebrities, even male celebrities, that continue to do this on the side. And I thought it was interesting that they actually brought it to the point of like, I just want attention.
Yeah.
That was just like, oh, okay, all right.
Well, and it was so, I mean, that's kind of what it came down to in the courtroom, because like she was getting pressured from the lawyer and stuff, and so it kind of put her into that.
But even before that, just that conversation on the doorstep with it was her, Olivia, and
that it's like fun, and
can't help it, like he put $200 there and the
thrill.
I
was like, 200. I'm sorry.
I was like, did
she said that? I was like, $200 made you want to keep doing this? I'm sorry. I would have been like, hey, you can get this $200 back. Like, maybe like
I might
a lot
blow
more
on
than
it for
that.
200.
Yeah, I might like shake your hand, but come on. Just kidding. See, more jokes.
Right.
It's like
Wouldn't actually.
It's like 100 million.
I know.
Also kidding. Anyway.
But not really. If you have.
But not really. I mean, $1 billion. It's cool.
I'll send my hotline. Hit me up on Twitter, and I'll put my hotline up there later.
Anyway, so I mean, not like understandable, but this is her outlet. Like, she's got a 5-year-old, which I found it very interesting that when they're talking to her husband about whether or not she's stressed, and he's like, of course she's stressed. Our son is 5. I'm like,
oh, that's it.
There you go, kids. You're going to be stressed for your entire life all the time.
Which I'm like, why? What I don't understand is people who have sex with, like, if you have that man at your house, just laying in your house all the time, like, why are you having sex with people who don't look to that caliber?
She did have a very good looking
very
husband.
attractive.
Yeah.
Like, they were like almost like I thought they were like Kelly and what's his name? Kelly
Kelly
Ripa and Mark. I was like, they're like perfect. Like,
yes,
it's
very beautiful
sickening,
people.
actually.
Right? Yeah, they were very attractive, but it was kind of her outlet. And so she meets this man, Phil, at a bar and ends up, they flirt, or it seems totally cool, and then we cut to a scene where she is clearly traumatized in some way. Her dress is ripped, she's very bloody, she's very upset, and she starts jumping across the building rooftops, which was insane. You're like, oh my gosh.
I was like, what am I watching right now?
And then the cops are chasing her around, and she's just running all over and being like, I win. Clearly has checked out of whatever just happened. And it was interesting at the hospital, I think, because she was pretty like not chill about it, but pretty mellow with the whole situation. And then, of course, tells her husband what happened. Does not disclose how it happened necessarily, but he knows, or at least we know that he knows she goes into the city to have these nights away, but we don't know if he knows the extent of it, which later we learned that he's like, I'm not dumb, I know what's going on. Come on.
I almost thought at one point they were going to unveil like he was like her pimp, or I thought the agent was going to be like sending out these sports players. I'm like, oh my God.
That would have been so much better, because on the whole, I will say that this episode felt like it was a year long.
Yeah,
like it wasn't that, I don't think it was the best that we've had, I think the topic was interesting, definitely looking more at mental health and bipolar disorder and stuff. That was really cool, but it wasn't as exciting as I thought.
Yeah, it was like I am a huge advocate for mental health, and I love that they tried to tackle this, or that they did tackle it. I wish, the writing was a little better for this specific episode, because I felt like taking the endorsement deal, and there's so many stories that they could have taken if they wanted to go the celebrity route.
Right.
And I just felt like the sports thing was like, here's an important mental health issue, and I felt like they were more so about the Olympics and it being a sports player versus really tackling the mental health issue. Because to me, the moments where we saw the issues of mental health were so over the top ridiculous, which when we get to it, I mean, those things do happen, but for SVU, for them, because they are cut and edit kind of people, it was just kind of like, really? You said, it was very soap opera-y.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was the two main characters that really made me feel that, or if it was just the way it was. It felt like they were running the whole show. And it was like Liv and them would come in versus the SVU episode. It's like Liv's kind of running.
Right.
It was very shot interesting. I would like to know if it was a new director or something, because it was very different.
Could look that up, but I think it would take a while for
our internet. But if you guys are in the chat, if you guys could let us know who directed it, that would be really dope.
Yeah, because it did feel different from episodes that we're used to. Like I was saying, really soap opera-y in that. I mean, with something that we learned later in the episode, but like, oh, our victim is dealing with bipolar disorder, and suddenly Rollins' sister is bipolar as well. Who would have thought? What a coincidence, How
did you feel about Rollins when her sister first came in? Like her whole reaction to her.
So it was interesting because I didn't know in that parole hearing. So Kim is back in the picture, as we've seen Kim mess things up so much in the past, and just like, I do not like her. Though I felt bad for her in this episode a lot. So I'm like, Rollins is being tough on her, but I'm like, she should be being tough on her, But I initially almost wondered if she was like using, Jesse and all this stuff, like, I found Jesus, all these things as tricks to try and butter up the parole board. And then you see Rollins there, and I'm like, oh wait, this is okay, I guess, or something.
That's so. I've thought the same exact thing. I thought it was a whole butter up trick, and then there was just a point in the story where she kept kind of looking at Carisi, and it was just kind of like, I felt like this genuine. I don't know if you've ever met. I don't know. I used to work with people who would come out of recovery and rehab, and so they fixate on different things, because normally where they would fixate on
whatever their addiction
right
is or something.
So I just thought it was so interesting that they even tied that in her, just her little micro expressions of her turning to Creasy and the emotions she would get, and then the emotions she would get when she would turn to Rollins. I really like that they touched on that, and it was so little, and like I only am looking at it because I'm reading a book called Lie to Me. Oh, really?
Alex Chappell directed SVU since 2011.
Thank you, Zach.
And thank you guys in the chat. I know a few of you wrote that as well.
Yeah, thank you guys. And I think that that's actually really interesting. I wonder why he took. It really did felt
like
different.
a PSA for bipolar disorder.
Yep.
It's like, and guess what? Even your sister could be bipolar too, not just the like championship pole vaulter. Dun, dun.
We just started the marketing.
Yeah. Your next door neighbor could be bipolar. And this isn't making light of bipolar disorder or saying people who have it are.
Yeah. I mean, I question at times, like, I literally have gone to the doctors and asked if I specifically
I know
had
several
it,
people who have very functional. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you guys a bipolar disorder story from one of my close friends, but when the point gets to in the story, because it's just like, go ahead.
Yeah. So this whole deal comes through. She doesn't want to come public with being raped because she's afraid that the reason or the situation in which she got raped, escorting, is going to come out there. Her reputation will get damaged. She'll, all this stuff will happen. And with going into the Olympics and for her chances for the next Olympics, PR is really important. It's not just about how well you can perform. You have to represent your country well.
So here I am watching this, and it really didn't kind of aha till the end for me. But I'm sitting here like PR wise, because we're in Hollywood, we see this kind of stuff all the time. I'm sitting here like, PR wise, this is almost a PR dream. Like, she's trying to get into the next Olympics. This man raped her. She's a victim.
Right.
And
I thought, leave out the escort part.
No, exactly. Right. Which he had some, fraudulent things that they felt like were strong enough to go after him. But I thought it was just so interesting that it got to the point where she wasn't even thinking that. Her agent wasn't even thinking that. And it took the prosecutor to even put that conversation out there. Like, that was the most interesting part to me about all this, because working in this field, these PR are on it, and before the PR even gets with the celebrities, usually thinking, how do I flip this? How do I Kris Jenner this situation?
Right. Well, and a funny thing that there are some ties to this episode in real life with the Ryan Lochte situation in the Olympics not that long ago, where they basically, so Ryan Lochte, U.S. Olympic swimmer, and he claimed that he and a few other teammates were held up at gunpoint by Brazilian police officers and, robbed and stuff, like all this stuff. And what really ended up happening was they got really wasted and like trashed some bathroom or something,
Destroyed
and
property
so
and tried to throw it and blame.
Yeah, we're trying to cover their dumbasses by blaming the Brazilian police officers. So that's like a loose connection to this episode, but where, I wouldn't say that's the smartest idea to try and cover your tracks. Just say, hey, we got out of hand a little bit. But like making this huge story of like, oh, well, shoot, that's going to look bad for me. What can I do like to cover this PR wise? Oh, I'm going to say I got held up, Right. But so they are, that's kind of our real world situation that this is pulling from.
How did you feel about Liv in this episode?
Oh, Kris Jenner, the situation. Anne-Marie. So Jesse's just meaning, turning lemons into lemonade, if you will. The whole point with that, how the Kardashians are only a thing because of Kim Kardashian's sex tape. There we go.
Kris Jenner marketed it, and markets all of her daughters and their boyfriends very well.
Yes.
So
hey.
I wish she would be my manager. I wish I could be adopted, so without hurting my mother's feelings. Love you.
Yeah.
Because this is probably the only after show she watches.
Hey, Ma. Hey. So and all that bad stuff kind of ends up happening. Media tabloids, they get a hold of it. Her agent drops her, and she loses all these endorsements, all this stuff.
And it was
negative
like,
stuff happens.
I know it's SVU, but it was they did get me to a nauseating point. I don't know if I wasn't connected into Hollywood, I don't know if I would have been as understanding of it. But that scene where, and it was kind of rushed, where she was like, and the endorsements. I keep saying it because it was just so, it's really true. Like she's thinking about 4 years from now, but she's already planning. She's already invested the money in this. And again, for the prosecutor to just go ham on her, like, you're crazy to think this. Like, what? And to have this moment happen, it's really like, that is, as an artist, to be prepping for something like that. Like, I could imagine your heart just in your throat, like, what the heck is about to happen now?
Yeah, exactly. When that's what you are focusing your entire life and like every minute of your day around that, and someone challenges that and takes advantage of you when you're kind of in this like fragile, like manic state, and just really push those buttons with her in the courtroom. And I feel like that was like the most exciting scene we had, when she starts stripping her clothes off and stuff, when he's like, oh, but he rejected you, and so you had to prove that
prosecutor was good
and stuff. Yeah, and like, but you're not, like, you're just some mom, like, blah blah blah, all this stuff. She's like,
he didn't like your muscular build.
Yeah, she's like, he loved my body, and starts stripping off her clothes, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Barbara's like, trying to cover her up.
I died at this scene because I was watching the episode by myself, and one of my friends was on their computer working and was like kind of halfway watching it. Mm-hmm. And as the build up to the scene is happening, like, wait, so what happened? Like, he wants to pay her this, like, and I'm explaining it. Yeah. And that moment was so random. I was like, almost like, has SVU jumped a shark right now? Like, what is happening? Why is she stripping? Like, why is she being so, like, crazy? And it made me look like, okay, wow, like, that was a bad acting choice, like, a whole bunch of things. And then I thought to myself, I had to rewind my personal life. So I have growing up, I have a friend, and we joke about half of the stuff together because, so she is my celestial twin. Okay. We are literally born like 30 minutes away from each other, same day, same town over from each other, like crazy. And then we ended up becoming really good friends and meeting each other later in life. Mm-hmm. So one day, I've known her for a very long time. We're driving in her car, me and another friend, and she wanted to go to Dunkin' Donuts. Well, we wanted to go to Dunkin' Donuts, and she wanted to go to Mary Lou's. So we were like, well, Mary Lou's is kind of the bougie, like, coffee place. I don't have the money for that right now, and I could get more if we went to Dunkin' Donuts. And it was kind of like a 2 against 1 thing, so it was kind of like, everyone should pick that one. Well, I saw a different side of my friend that day, and it changed all of our lives, and it brought me to this moment. So as that happened, she said to my friend in the front seat, she said, bitch, you want Dunkin' Donuts? As she's driving, reached over, opened the door out and was like, get the fuck out of my car. Driving.
Wait, she's driving and she tries to push the other person out?
Get the fuck out of my car, you fucking bitch. Fuck you. Oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I know, I'm sorry, guys. I just really want you to feel the moment. It was just really in the moment. So she's making all these swears and all this stuff and like just screaming at us. I'm like, are we gonna live? What's happening?
Oh my.
She drives down this dirt road. The car door is still open. My friend's like trying to close it, like, just stop, girl. Like, it's okay. She pulls into this random driveway, gets out of the car crying hysterically. We're in there just like, wait, like, I couldn't move for 5 minutes. Like, what the hell just happened? I've never seen her like this in my life. Oh. She gets out of the car, goes in for like 15 minutes. We're like, I don't want to get out. Like, we're in the middle. I grew up in like the boondocks. So it's like, we don't know where we are. We're in the middle of the woods at this house. Like, is she okay? Are we okay?
She went into the house?
She went into this house crying hysterically. I've known this girl for years. Never knew anything like this. She comes back out. She's like, hey, guys. Just had to use the bathroom. She's like, that's my aunt's house. I was like, what? What just happened? So then we were like, we need to go home. A week later, she showed.
She just didn't.
She
went pee and came back, and it was like
nothing happened. We didn't ask no questions. She dropped us off. Exact week later, she came to my brother's birthday at a bar. and wanted to play darts, and felt that my closest friend wasn't including her. Darts, we were playing 2 people, and she felt she wasn't included when she came late to the, like, it was just crazy. And she ended up smashing a whole bunch of glasses randomly. Come to find out, I had a conversation with her. I said, look, girl, like, I don't know what's going on with you. When we came and we found out she went to a doctor that she had bipolar disorder. Okay. And so to say all that, in this moment watching that, I thought it was so ridiculous, but this is a real thing. And ever since this day, it has changed my life for mental disorder, because I never believed in it. I never believed in depression and certain things until I actually had to be on medication for it. And bipolar disorder, multiple personality disorder, all these things are really real, and people don't look into it. And it comes down to little things like your sexuality, or being hypersexual, lots of different things that you do, addictions, things like that. Look into it, because they stem from something. Right. And I think it's really important. I do appreciate that SVU is putting this out there. I appreciate that. I feel like this month, a lot of people have been stepping out talking about mental illnesses randomly. It's very
interesting, because I didn't see that, but I have been watching the show Shameless. I know we're getting kind of off topic, but they have, you know, a main character in it who has bipolar disorder, and like
Which
the mom
character?
has Ian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and sorry, spoilers for
Sorry,
anyone who doesn't
I
watch
haven't
it.
seen. I'm late.
But this is like more in the current season and stuff, and so yeah, I feel like mental illness
coming out.
is being much more, you know, talked about a lot more, and it's not like, you know, it's something they deal with, and they've had a lot of very dramatic episodes related to that, but then also figuring out how to get them, you know, how they kind of manage that and balance it out so that they can live a really fulfilling and productive life, you know.
And even then, after, to see her go straight to the training after that, and how she was, you know, putting her attention and energy into just overtraining. It's funny, because my friend, what she was putting her, it was drugs and alcohol. And so it's just, you find ways to simmer that, and that, to that extent, you know, it really hurt me more so to see that her husband was feeding that. That's where I was more so bothered. Like, can we look at him and actually kind of hold him accountable a little bit at a certain point?
And it's hard, because I mean, I don't really have firsthand. I mean, I know some people who have bipolar disorder, but I haven't, like, you know, experienced it too much firsthand from other people. But when they're like in the manic phases, and a lot of the times it's like amazing, like you're insanely productive and just like positive and just like crushing it, you know. But then that can get to another level where you start being really destructive and impulsive, but then it can also get to like the low level where you get super depressed, you know, and can't leave bed, sort of thing. So it's hard, because when they're medicated, it evens things out, but it's kind of like a shitty like numbness, you know, until you find that balance. Another instance of it on TV is Homeland. Claire Danes' character is bipolar.
Oh, really?
Which is part of what makes her so successul at her job. Is that like her brain working that way, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's pros and cons with it, because it's hyperactivating your brain. I just thought it was so dope that they are even tackling it. And then I also thought it was interesting, because I was talking to a friend who is really big in the workout world and muscle fitness and whatnot, and he was talking about body dysmorphia and how he felt that a lot of people in this world of fitness, like there are people who like genuinely like enjoy learning about, you know, building yourself naturally, but then there's this other world of they're building themselves because it's what they're obsessed with, and it gets to a point of like people, you think that they're perfect, and you look at these bodies and you're like yeah, but you don't understand that their body dysmorphia stems from a personality disorder, whether it being bipolar, multiple personality, or what. So I think that it's interesting too, because it's just stuff that's never talked about. And how do you bring something like that up? You know, you're going to use someone as an example? No, but a show like SVU can paint an example. So I thought, all right. It was not my favorite episode, but I liked the topic that we were discussing.
Agree. I definitely agree with that. And I mean, with the plot stuff, you know, we find out this guy Phil has raped several other escorts. None are willing to testify.
How did you feel about the other woman though? When she was like, I ain't saying nothing. Like,
yeah, right.
She was like, I'm a whore. Like, I'm not gonna. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Say
pretty
anything,
much.
So.
I liked the sting that they tried to do. One, I mean, I would be uneasy with sending her into a sting anyway. But then, wouldn't you think they would have told the husband that this was going on? Like, how did he stumble upon this?
Yeah, like, oh yeah, randomly, here I am, babe, it's okay.
Yeah, and why were all of our officers in the car together? Like, isn't someone usually kind of there to keep a lookout in case things go south? They can pounce on the situation.
And then not only that, but is there a little bit of training where it's like, okay, look, he's gonna play coy at first, like instead of being like, just give me an apology, it was just like. Everything about her character was just, I don't know.
Well, they're trying to make us wonder what is going on the whole time. Like, why is she so erratic?
Okay,
and why
yeah,
because
we hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah, because we find out later in the episode that she's bipolar, and then it kind of turns the direction of where the episode's going.
Now, my thing though, okay, because obviously, like we've talked about it, like the whole conversation about rape. Did you take it that it was rape?
Yes. Yeah, there was no question in my mind about that. And I think he even, because my thing was, he even kind of confirmed that it was rape. He's like, I'm paying them for it, so I can do whatever I want. My
thing was, she admitted that she wanted it at first, and that at first when they had started, it was consensual.
Right. Yes.
And then,
but as Barba says, you can revoke consent at any time.
Okay.
You go, wait a second, this isn't what I want. Can we stop and reassess the situation? And he said no, basically. He said, nope, I'm doing it anyway. Not okay.
Yeah, it's...
So yeah, it started out consensually, and then he started doing things she didn't like, and she said no, and he kept doing them.
Because when she told the story, for me, it was just, it kind of got watered down a little bit. When she was telling her side, I was like, girl, you aren't helping your case right now.
Yeah, she kind of calmed it down in a sense. Like, if you like what she looked like and all that blood, like anal bleeding, and we saw the ripped dress and all the blood on her legs and stuff, you know, she's like, oh yeah, he started doing things I didn't want, and I said no.
Yeah, it was just, like, as a jury, I would have heard that and been like, well, okay, you went there to have sex while you have a husband. Okay, you went there to receive money. Okay, you said yes. Now you're sitting here telling us how he loved your body. It was just one of those things where in that moment, if I was the jury, I would have looked at it and really had to question, like...
Right. Well, and that's what
are you just protecting your brand?
And that's what his, goal was, to get her, like, being like, oh, no, I wanted it. And I was like, yeah, I wanted him to love my body, sort of thing. So where it blurs those lines, for sure. And, what are they saying up there in the chat?
Yeah, Adrian says, I didn't mind Jenna having bipolar disorder, but I hate that the writers made Kim have bipolar disorder. We agreed with that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. Well, let's conclude our Jenna situation. So basically, we find out she's got bipolar disorder, and it results in her essentially taking time off to work on herself, is like the big conclusion. Like, my health is more important than the Olympics. You know, which, yeah, focus on your health. But this is where it seemed very like, PSA for bipolar disorder, I'm working on me. You know? But yeah, so it concluded like nicely, I feel like, you know, and they had a plea deal and all that stuff. But yeah, let's talk about Kim a little bit. So the whole episode, Rollins is like being tough on Kim, which I completely support, you know, uncomfortable with her being alone with Jesse, all this stuff. And she gets home later in the episode and the door's locked. Jesse's just like in her little bed and stuff. And Rollins is like, okay, what the hell is going on? Knocks through the door and she finds Kim with pills, and she's taking
lithium.
Yeah, lithium, which is
and oxy
for bipolar disorder.
Well, was lithium. Oh yes, it is. Sorry.
Yeah. And
I was on Lexapro. It's depression.
And so we learned that Kim is bipolar as well, which seemed way too coincidental. And I think that's what Jasmine was saying. It made us feel bad for her, you know?
Yeah, that's what she said. She feels like they only want us to feel bad for her.
So that we would like her.
I feel like I already feel bad for her, even though in the moments like
I feel bad for her, but I feel like, hey, you made your bed, lay in it, but now it's like, oh well, I guess there's some reason now for why you maybe were acting this way. And not that excuses your behavior, but like there's a bit more explanation for it.
I guess a little bit. I mean, I think that maybe if like, see, I don't know if they could have done it in 2 weeks, because we would have been like really another bipolar disorder, like. Yeah. I don't know, like for me, either or. I thought the moment of her going into the precinct was strong enough for me personally. You know, I felt like it could have been depression. It didn't have to be bipolar disorder. You know, like I'm in that sense of it. But Dimitri the Thinker says, well, does anyone remember the season 9 premiere when Stabler's family was held hostage by someone with DID, which could be setting up something like that with Amanda and Kim?
Yeah, I know. How do you feel? Do you trust Kim at all? Because I don't. I think we kind of got like, you know, there's some feeling like, no, she's turned a new leaf, and Rollins is still apprehensive of it. You know, oh, it seems like it, but it's the calm before the storm sort of thing.
Yeah, here's the thing with those medications, like you become so numb to life. Like you were literally going through the motions. Like it got to a point where like my whole waking up out of it was, while it was on the pills, I was like, I just feel like I don't feel anything. Like it's actually worse. I'd rather feel bad than not feel anything. Right. And so I had taken myself off, but working on, okay, here's how I'm going to get better. So for me, what the interesting storyline with Kim would be, okay, she's really trying to stay on her medication, do good, but does that days out do something with the baby, and does something happen now because, you know, she's on the medication and she has changed this leaf, but when you are on this in this transition, you're not fully aware of a lot of your motives sometimes. And you know, that's why a lot of the pills say don't operate with cars or machinery or stuff like that.
Drink, you know.
So that would be interesting. I could see something.
Oh, I for sure. And we even get a little foreshadowing of something, because Liv tells Amanda when, you know, in the beginning when she's like, oh, it's either my house or a shelter. Liv's like, shelter wouldn't be a bad idea. And she says, like, if you cover for her again, you're done. You know, I'll take your shield. And so we're definitely gonna see some drama with Kim. Who knows what it's gonna be like? Maybe she's gonna be totally the victim and not the causer of all the drama, but
like someone from her past coming up or something. That would be interesting.
But something is for sure gonna happen. Though we shall see what it looks like. And before we move on to some news to talk about, so Liv and Tucker, there might be some drama going on there, because Liv, in relation to the situation with Jenna and her husband, says, oh, every relationship has secrets, when she's talking to Carisi, and he's like, oh, what, you and everything okay with you and Tucker? And she isn't really able to respond, but kind of like the look on her face and stuff. So something is happening, but who knows what it is. I know someone in the chat, Kel14, said they need to bring Tucker in more so we can see if they work. Yeah. Agreed. I don't want them to throw Liv in a relationship. I want to see that. Like, we've been with Liv long enough that we deserve that. We need to approve of this guy. Yes, okay? Of course. Exactly. We family. Exactly. All right, shall we move on to some news and predictions? It kind of all bundles into one story, into really. One. Oh, so news. Okay, so we'll kind of your AfterBuzz. It's like the news prediction remix. Mashup. So some news, some real life SVU news. Oh my gosh, turn up for what? It's still going. It's still going. Woo! Okay, this is exciting. So there has been some. So last week, a tape surfaced of Donald Trump talking to a Billy Bush. Yeah, Access Hollywood, right? Reporter back, like, I don't know when this was, but it doesn't really matter. But back in the day, like some chatter going on that happened to be recorded, where he's making very derogatory or, you know, comments about women and things that he has allegedly done to women or wants to do. Yeah, and so this leaked, very damaging, and So the Hollywood Reporter has an article that says, as Trump allegations emerge, rape support group cautions against insulting accusers. And this is actually, that rape support group is RAIN. So the group we give you guys the hotline for in the beginning of every episode. And a rep for them said that, and this is true for any rape victims, when people come forward years after maybe something has happened, like we see with Bill Cosby, like all this stuff, to not attack the victims because like, oh, well, why didn't you speak up back in the day? Or why are you just now coming forward? Or of course now you're coming forward because you want your 15 minutes of fame. Whatever the reason is, that like never to do that, because there are so many reasons why somebody might not speak up. You know, I have seen, I'm in some Facebook groups for like women only where someone has posted like, hey, I just got raped last night and it was by this person we met on Tinder, or whatever the case was. And where they're like, this is so traumatic for me and I'm having such a hard time just surviving right now that I'm not going to press charges and I'm not going to go to the police because I can't even handle going to that place. I just need to focus on like right now, you know, and then like it kind of, and then you don't know what happens after that, because it is like whether or not you want to just move on fast or continue that pain in that situation, whether it's kind of like worth it, you know?
Sometimes you have
and
to
that's
think
a personal
about
decision.
your family, because I mean, for me, I was raped at 19. I lost my virginity to that, and it was meeting somebody offline, my first sexual experience and gay experience. I haven't started dealing with it until maybe a year and a half ago. And the reason being is that when it happened, the first thing that I did was run home. I ran to my dorm room, locked myself in my room, and didn't talk to anyone for probably about 24 hours, like a full day. Everyone was knocking on my door. I just literally sat in the dark. And I wasn't thinking about anything. You don't think about anything. You're just, because you don't know what to feel, what to think. You don't know if you were right, if you were wrong, if you should tell someone, and then what happens when you tell somebody, and then what that really means. And then it's like this one moment that, even though it was 10 minutes, that 10 minutes, if you go and tell somebody, how that extends that 10 minutes. And now you have to look that person in the face again. And you aren't, even though you're thinking about that right there, you're not really thinking about it. You're not really dealing with it, because it didn't hit me until I was walking with somebody a year ago, and the conversation came up, and I just felt open enough to say, you know what? When that happened, I felt worthless. I felt like I was robbed, and I didn't know how to accept that, how to deal with it. I wasn't out to my family, so I couldn't tell my parents. So I couldn't out, because then it's going to embarrass my family. So it's not always just about the victim. The victim's protecting other people in the situation. And even though it's from the outside, we can look like, no one cares. Just tell. You unless you've been through it, you're never really going to understand. That's why shout out to California for opening, for changing that law so that people can come out and do that. Because I definitely, shout out to those who can straight from the moment go out and talk to somebody about it. That's a very powerful thing. But I think for the most part, most people can't, because it's really a hard thing to wrap your head about. For me, it was just hard to wrap my head around, how did this person morally in that moment accept what they were doing? Like that still to this day, and I that's something like therapy and things like that have to work you out. So it's just, in that kind of stuff, I think, yes, you don't like, because it's like, I love Bill Cosby, but then at the same time, you know what I mean? You don't want to believe that about Bill Cosby, but then it's like, you don't want to also take these women's stories
it's not
that
like
could have changed their lives. They could have done something to help the world.
And one of the things this article says is that, and why sometimes this happens when people seem to all come forward at once, or whatever the case is that one person might be enough to make other people who've gone through that feel strong enough to say something.
Because finally, especially in a thing of
power. It's like, oh, I'm not the only one. It wasn't my fault. Even though we know it's not their fault anyway, like that validation that, oh, it wasn't just me in this weird freak accident. Like there's I'm not helpless against this situation, and especially that like this person did was in power. Wrong. Yeah, and this person in power who can ruin my life very easily. I mean, already probably very, very much did in a sense, but can take it further, you know, if I try and come out against them in some way. And so that's one of the things Rain has been saying about the rape accusers or victims, to not, and
support
just rape victims in general, not to criticize or attack accusers, because there's so much more
and just
happening.
to hear him use that language in that specific way was just such a, no one grabs anybody like that. So to think that you in your mind put that sentence together is just beyond me.
Yeah.
And hopefully SVU does an episode for it.
Well, speaking of, next week's episode.
Wait, really? Next week?
Wait, yeah. Next week's episode is not like exactly that situation, because obviously they can't change things on the fly that much. But next week's episode is a Trump-inspired episode. Let me see. What is it called? Unstoppable, I believe. And we've got Gary Cole starring as the character who is described by a source as a wealthy and boorish man who makes a run for the White House. That sounds familiar. And in the clip that we saw, the little teaser, he talks about how women just love him, like he can take what he wants, sort of thing, which, you know, it has some connections here. And so I'm really excited to see how that goes. I mean, Gary Cole's an excellent actor, so it'll be really fun to see that. Though at the same time, like, not to like create a shitstorm here, but like, we know who Trump is running against. Remember her husband and how he was with women? You know, like, it's not like, yeah, I mean, it could be very, obviously this episode we've got next week is related to Trump, but, you know, we have plenty of examples of politicians and people in power who do this kind of
It's so funny though,
shit.
because they're saying that they were going to put it on the November 9th, the day after the election.
Oh yeah, and then
but I bet because of this video, they were like,
they
bump it
kind
up.
of switched it for sure, which is it's always fun when SVU does very timely issues and situations that are very much related to things that are going on. So super excited for that one. And we are at time. Is there anything else we need to cover tonight? I think we got into a lot of it.
Yeah. I feel like we talked a lot more than we thought we would.
Right?
Because it was like the episode was just, it was kind of very general.
Yes.
But I mean, I don't think we've really hit this topic before.
No, I don't think so.
To this extent. So I thought, good conversational piece.
No. And you guys, our internet connection was a little down in here, but next week, give us some good reviews to read. And if you throw emojis in there, I mean, don't get too crazy. I'm looking at you guys last week in the chat, but throw some emojis in there. We'll act it out. Get expressive.
And it's October 26th is the Trump one. So not next week, the week after.
Oh, it's not? Oh, do we have a break next week?
The 26th. Oh, maybe there's a break. But everyone in the Kel 14 is saying that, and I just saw it online too.
All right. Awesome. Well, anyways, I think
we'll
that about does it. I need to confirm because I don't know off the top of my head. But you guys, thank you so much for tuning in, for chatting with us there in the chat. As always, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button in YouTube right now and check us out on iTunes as well. We are thrilled you guys made it here tonight. You can find me everywhere online, especially Instagram, and really mainly Instagram right now because I do the Instagram and the Instagram story like primarily now that Instagram has the Snapchat
and her
inside of it already.
Instagram's popping.
Thank you. And it's Lauren Salaun. Find me there. And where can everyone find you, Jesse?
Boom! Everywhere at DJ Jesse J.
Woo!
Across the board.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Bye!
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Dun, dun, dun.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.